In the Tulsa City Library in Oklahoma, Sherby Green confronts her demons.
Every family has the proverbial skeleton in their closet. Actually, my family has quite a few of them.
Sherby's family skeletons remained hidden by her protective father.
He said, you better just leave things alone. Just leave them where they're at. He said, you might just find out a whole lot more that you don't want to know.
Now, after 50 years, Sherby Green wants the truth. Why her third cousin became one of America's most notorious serial killers, Nanny Doss.
From her track record, it looks that anyone who got on her wrong side, they signed their own death warrant.
Nanny is thought to have killed 14 people, all by poison. Over the next week, Sherby hopes to meet her murderous cousin, even though Nanny's been dead for 38 years.
Well, there's a couple of things that I hope to find out, but I guess the most prominent one would be the why, to understand the woman.
Sherby's search will take her to the darkest corners of the human mind.
A killer's family has a very difficult time balancing out mentally what has happened.
Dr. Deborah Sherman Coughlin knows Sherby's destination. A criminal profiler for 17 years, Dr. Sherman Coughlin has investigated and interviewed many murderers. But intriguing her most are female killers, and why most of them turn to poison.
They typically choose poisons because they tend to be in a caregiver role, and they have access to feeding an individual or injecting an individual. It's something that's easy for them to obtain. It's something that is more difficult to trace.
Poison is an ancient weapon. Convenient, non-confrontational, secretive. Statistically, women are 5 times as likely to use it as men.
It's more difficult for a female to wield a knife and use a knife to cut a victim, whereas it's a lot easier to put poison in someone's food. A female serial killer will choose a victim who's already helpless. They will choose young children. They will choose the elderly. They will choose sick victims. They will choose family members who are close to them. So they're choosing someone who is already somewhat under their control.
From 1945 to 1954, Nanny Doss uses her kitchen to kill 4 husbands. Victim Sam Doss is a typical study.
I believe he was a very quiet, very strict man due to his religious beliefs. He didn't let her play the radio, wouldn't let her run the fan at night, wouldn't let her go next door to a neighbor's house and watch TV. And he just got tired of having to follow his strict house rules and decided she wanted out of it.
One day, Nanny adds rat poison, available at the corner store, to Sam's favorite dessert, stewed prunes.
Poison Control Center, how may I help you? How long ago was this?
I would take him to the emergency room as soon as possible.
If Sam Doss was poisoned today, this type of facility might have saved his life.
Wipe out his mouth with some room temperature water.
We get about 200 or so calls a day. I would say over the course of a year, we probably get about 60,000 calls.
Dr. Lewis Nelson deals with accidental poisonings at New York City's Poison Control Center.
Sure, go ahead. There's a lot of poisoning going on because there's a lot of chemicals out there. There's a lot of medicines out there. There's a lot of occupational exposures as well. So there is a lot of poisoning going on.
Occasionally, among Dr. Nelson's cases is arsenic, the active ingredient in Nanny's rat poison.
Arsenic's been used for thousands of years. It's a naturally occurring poison. It comes in rock formations and you can extract it fairly easily. It's been identified as being toxic for literally thousands of years, and it's been used over the millennium as homicidal agents to knock off powerful figures and emperors and other figures like that.
Tasteless and odorless, arsenic moves quickly through the bloodstream. Within 30 minutes, Sam Doss's major organs will be contaminated. But this time, due to an overdose, Sam's body fights back.
If you ingest something that irritates your stomach, what happens is that the stomach essentially contracts in reverse and squeezes from the bottom up. At the same time, the sphincter, the muscle that controls the opening and closing of the esophagus, opens, allowing the food to come from the stomach up into the esophagus and then out through the mouth. And that would be vomiting.
This reflex action stops much of the poison from entering Sam's bloodstream. Although ill, he will not die.
She overdid it that time. The first time she gave him enough to make him sick enough to throw it up, so it didn't have any effect.
Sherby Green tracks down a first-hand account of Nanny's next steps.
I'm Sherby Green.
Sherby?
W. Dean Heidi, MD, is a respected Tulsa banker. In 1954, he was Sam Doss's doctor.
I first saw Sam in my office. He was quite ill, and this was during a flu epidemic in Tulsa, and we were seeing lots of people, but he was so ill, I felt that he needed to be admitted to the hospital. And I don't recall exactly how long he was in, 3 or 4 days maybe, but he improved, got better, and we sent him home.
But Sam's days are numbered.
This time she measured it out and she got it right.
The smaller dose is carried swiftly to Sam's organs.
Arsenic is what's known as a multi-system toxin or a multi-organ toxin. It pretty much poisons everything.
Arsenic strikes at the core of almost every cell. Energy powerhouses called mitochondria. Here, food is turned into energy, keeping us alive. It's known as the Krebs cycle, and arsenic shuts it down by blocking crucial enzymes.
And when your enzymes in your individual cells don't work, the cells fail. When the cells fail, the organs fail, and when the organs fail, the body fails.
Sam's brain, kidneys, liver, and lungs are being starved of energy.
An individual who poisons a human being is sinister. To sit back and watch someone who's slowly being eaten away from the inside out is vicious. It's immoral. You have to have no conscience to sit back and watch someone, especially someone you know, slowly deteriorating in front of your eyes.
Under the cover of an anguished wife, Nanny admits Sam to the hospital. Sam's doctor is perplexed.
I had several specialists take a look at him to see if there was something that I was missing, and they couldn't come up with anything. But he continued just to go downhill and died.
But is there anything in particular that stuck in your memory about Nanny?
Well, other than she was just a real nice little old lady who played the role perfectly.
That's the masks that they wear. They hide behind that assumption that a little old lady couldn't possibly have done this. They use that to their advantage so that they can be more effective in their murdering.
The frightening thing is Sam wasn't the first. He was the last in a long line of deaths that surrounded Nanny by poisoning.
"14 of Nanny's family or friends perish. She defies suspicion for 27 years, but not for much longer. Sam Doss will have his revenge from the grave."
I have here a copy of his death certificate, and if you'll notice, it's all typed in, except the cause of death and, of course, my signature, because they didn't know what to type.
After Dr. Heidi's late revelation of arsenic poison, Nanny is arrested and charged. But the real hero is a science forged a century before, across the Atlantic. A time when Victorian England is gripped by a poison epidemic, breeding their most notorious female killer. The forensic toxicology used to convict Nanny Doss was refined in England's 19th century medical laboratories.
Toxicology, as a newly developing subject, spends an awful lot of time talking about arsenic and trying to develop more and more sophisticated tests to detect it.
For medical historian Dr. Ian Burney, there's no doubt why Victorian scientists were obsessed with arsenic.
Victorian England is awash in poison. It's on the wallpaper. It's in the medicines. It's in the sweets. It's on the floors to kill the vermin. So it's available.
By the 1850s, arsenic murders are rampant. The salt earns a nickname: inheritance powder. Extracting it from victims, exposing evidence, becomes a forensic fixation.
It was actually considered in Victorian times the crime of the age. The crudeness of the past had given way to more refined and civilized ways of interacting, so they had a civilized way of murdering.
And the most civilized of all will be Maryanne Cotton, England's worst female serial killer.
By all accounts, she was pleasant. She'd been a nurse twice. She'd been a good nurse, a caring nurse. It's just that she couldn't stop killing people for gain.
Detective Inspector Paul Heslop solved many murders before he retired.
I used to be a constable here and later on a detective constable.
Now a crime writer, his imagination draws him to Britain's most poisonous woman.
I think it was a woman in search for security in those days, you know. A woman didn't have anything. You know, they had to have the man for the house and the job that went with it and everything else.
In the 1800s, marriage means security. By coincidence, Paul Heslop's old beat passes the church where Maryanne wed one of her victims on September 17th, 1870.
I think when she came here and got married to Frederick Cotton, she probably thought she had a catch, if you like. She had a working man, she had an income, she had a family, she had a house. But then, as time passed, it seemed there was always something else manifested, and Maryanne wanted that. She wanted the something else. And once she wanted something else, it was just too easy to get rid of what she'd got to get the something else.
On their first wedding anniversary, Frederick Cotton is in no condition to celebrate. He's dying of arsenic poison. Maryanne poisons for profit.
Burial clubs were a common way for poorer members of society to ensure that their loved ones had a decent and proper funeral that they could pay for.
Burial insurance extends to children. The Cotton's year-old son dies of poison 6 months after Frederick.
You pay a couple of pence per month into a fund, and after a certain period of time, you will be allocated a lump sum. So you could, for the investment of, I don't know, sort of 20 pence over the course of a few years, you could potentially be seeing a return of 3, 4, 5, 10 pounds.
Early death and a pauper's burial delivers dividends.
Once again, my condolences, man.
And because arsenic symptoms mimic gastric infections, common at this time of poor hygiene, Maryanne is above suspicion. It's thought she poisons 3 husbands, a lover, her mother, a friend, and at least 12 of her own children and stepchildren.
Well, not just a woman, but a person who would kill her own flesh and blood would appear to me to be callous and ruthless. And in Maryanne Cotton's case, if it was done for gain, particularly so.
More than 130 years later, Sherby Green discovers Nanny also killed 2 of her children.
It's the worst that she could have done, is to poison her own children. It's believed she poisoned her sisters, her mother, many other family members, but her own children, her own flesh and blood. You know, these are the children that she carried for 9 months that she gave life to.
A mother could kill her own flesh and blood if she is a psychopath or if she is insane. The psychopath is the individual who has no bonding or no attachments and no empathy for others. The only person who matters to the psychopath is the psychopath.
Criminal profiler Dr. Deborah Sherman Coughlin believes Nanny and Maryanne share another trait. They were drifters, using distance to blur the pattern of their misfortune.
If you have one body in one jurisdiction and one body in another jurisdiction, if they're not talking to each other, then you have what's called linkage blindness, where they don't see that these crimes are related.
But one piece of police work can't be fooled by gender or geography. A technique still used today in modern toxicology labs, like the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in New York.
We very rarely see arsenic cases, but every once in a while, if there is a suspicion of an acute arsenic overdose, we do use the range test to screen for arsenic.
Head of the lab is Dr. Marina Stajich.
So it's a very simple test. 3 pieces of copper wire. And I have a positive control that contains a known amount of arsenic, a negative control, and a urine sample, which we're going to test for the presence of arsenic. This is what they would have done in Maryanne Cotton's day.
After heating with hydrochloric acid, the poison in the positive control and the urine sample should be revealed.
This was the negative control. The copper wire didn't change.
The arsenic emerges. Deposited on the wire is a black metallic coating.
What was the unknown specimen, there is also a black deposit. These two would indicate the presence of arsenic.
Developed more than 160 years ago by scientist Hugo Reinsch, the test helps convict Maryanne Cotton and Nanny Doss.
Arsenic is actually one of the easier poisons to detect. One of the reasons being that it's actually a mineral poison, so it stays in the body.
The dead can speak, their bodies revealing all to the toxicologist. Maryanne is sentenced to death by hanging. Her notoriety becomes a nursery rhyme.
Maryanne Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten. She lies in a bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Maryanne Cotton is tied up with string. Where, up in the air.